I lost you guys for a while. Okay.
Good evening. This is the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board. I'll begin with a script for remotely conducted meetings and hybrid open meetings. This is a Zoom meeting allowing the public to participate. Attendees must register. The registration link can be found in the description of the Nantucket Government TV YouTube live feed for the meeting. Please join in listening mode and click the raise hand button if you wish to speak. All questions should be directed through the chair. I will be the meeting manager, Andrew Lowell, chairman of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board. I will confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Peter Brace.
Here.
Scott Anderson.
Here.
Jim Sherlin.
Here.
Ginger Andrews.
Here.
David Bossy.
Here,
For staff, we have Tara Riley.
Present.
Anticipated speakers on the board tonight. See Dan Pronk. Dan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we hear you.
All right.
Good evening, Kona. Good evening. This open meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board is convening by video conference via Zoom app is posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note this meeting is being recorded. Take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. Please hold until your name is called to speak on the agenda item. Remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those of the members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and knowledge. Any vote taken tonight at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. I'll call to order this meeting of the Harbor Shellfish Advisory Board, April 2nd, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
Motion to approve. Second.
I'll
Motion's
second.
made. Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Sherlin to approve tonight's agenda. All in favor, Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin?
Aye.
Mr. Brace? Aye. Ms. Andrews?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
aye.
Thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of March 19th? Any revisions? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve them.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Sherlin to approve the minutes of March 19th, 2024. All in favor, Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Sherlin?
Aye.
Mr. Bossy?
Aye.
Ms. Andrews?
Aye.
Mr. Brace has stepped out of the room. Mr. Brace, you approve the minutes? All right. Minutes are approved. I'd like to announce that a former member of this board, Stephen Payer, passed away recently, and in his honor, I'd like to have a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Marine Department report. Do you have any representation? No. Natural Resources. Tara Riley, please.
Well, commercial scalloping wrapped up and we're waiting on a few more March reports to come in, but the number is looking like 8,709 bushels right now. And, all right, so things going on in the hatchery. We've been attending a lot of meetings. We had an eelgrass conference and a sugar kelp meeting in Barnstable. Just working with industry members and seeing, you know, how things are going in both restoration and the aquaculture end of farming sugar kelp. We've been moving some seed when the weather allows. It's been really windy and kind of gross. The seed on Bass Shoal is about 10% shell right now. We've been moving it over to Holbert Ave and like the Jetties area. That was the last area on our list to kind of seed in Nantucket Harbor. So I don't know if Sam is planning anything with the fishermen to move seed, or if we're just gonna, you know, just kind of see how it goes. We are gonna survey it in May. We're gonna be doing our dive surveys, so we'll get an idea of densities and check on all the seed that we've moved in 40 different areas of the harbor to see how it survived winter. And we'll also get an idea of Bass Shoal again and kind of where it stands right now. A lot of stuff has shifted around a lot with all those wind events, especially without eelgrass being in place. It really kind of bounces and moves with each wind event. All the bird fencing is up for the protected bird species. In the hatchery yesterday, we attempted our first razor clam spawn using the stout razors. They were conditioned for 6 weeks, which in the shellfish world, you have like 6 to 8 weeks to spawn them, and they weren't quite ready yet. At least that's what I think. But we did stand there for 8 hours cycling them with hot and cold water, and they handled it. We thought they would probably be dead this morning from all the stress, but they actually were alive and pumping. So we were pleasantly surprised with that. On today, if you guys are on Instagram, on Joe's Tech Talk, he was running our new bottle upweller system. It's called a Bupsy. And usually that's used to raise you know, oyster, shellfish seed in high densities, like flow through seawater systems, but we're using it this year for eelgrass germination and trying to see if we can duplicate like some of those high densities of eelgrass that we grow in the tanks, but they don't really do that well. To see if we can like improve the germination and survival rates of the eelgrass seeds. And lastly, yeah, we're getting ready to spawn in 2 weeks. We've got blood arcs we're spawning and quahogs, and probably also the razors again. So we'll have 3 different species that we're spawning. We hired all our interns. We only had 1 position open this year, and it was our field work internship with Joe, and it went to Eli Fuller, so a local kid here. So we're excited to have him on board. And yeah, I think that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Mr. Anderson.
One thing I would like in future reports in regard to number of bushels, I'd like a year by year comparison of active commercial fishermen over bushels over commercial fishermen. Because if could we get more if we have more fishermen? And the answer to me is yes.
It'll be interesting to see next year if the seed survives like into adulthood. You know, that would be the true test of if we have it, will they come? And I don't really think they will. You know, I think like there's an attrition rate related to economic reasons and all other types of reasons. So I think like, yeah, just, you know, our 10-year average is around 8,000 to 9,000 bushels per year. It would be great to get it up to like 15,000, I think, as a goal. Based on everything that we moved this year seed wise, if it say it all survived and every fisher, like we had enough fishermen to go out and limit every day, that supply of scallops would supply 67 fishermen. So full term every day, and there's about 108 days of fishing. And this year, I know Bruce Town got 105, so I don't know if we lost like 3 days or 2 days, but we didn't lose that many days of fishing. So just, yeah, there's a lot at play with economics and everything like that. So, yeah.
Let's say some
other fishermen, shared interest in moving some more cedar. Who wants to be, want to do it.
Okay, I guess
So-
I'll get in touch with
Yeah, I'll
Sam
talk
and
to him
see.
too.
Okay, that'd be great, thanks.
So to clarify, Bruce Cowan had
Well, I
105
don't know if
on
that's
the
like
water?
private information, I probably should have said
100
it,
right
but. I think he told me it was a
Public
record for him this year.
Well, it seemed like there were a lot of windy days that kept them from going out.
He was the
but-
only one who went.
Right. I, can we have,
102 days, you're right.
all right, can we have, more discussion about possibly raising the limit, the catch limit?
Yeah, as I was, editing the shellfish regulations, I did put in there, the verbiage for having the select board, be allowed to raise or lower as the shellfish supply or the, habitat allowed. So I think like, if we can get that in place, and before the season, I think like having a meeting before November 1st, like having it on the books, for the select board for approval, based on like our surveys and what we think, the habitat can handle. I think having like a pre-season meeting with approval from the select board each season for setting the bushel limit would be great. And also having the ability to adjust it throughout the season as needed too. So if it's set at, 6 and then we decide that, in beginning of December that people can get 10 and they can handle it based on the amount of people fishing, then I think we should be able to adjust it.
That's kind of why I
think-
wanted to know how many fishermen there were, so.
Well, I think the flexibility in adjustment would be handy.
Yeah.
Throughout the season. It doesn't require public notice. With the
I'm
select
not
board.
sure exactly, what it's gonna, I'm not sure exactly,
I mean,
but
to be able to create it to be as easy as possible, approval wise.
mhm,
And of course, based on what the scholopers are experiencing and your department's expertise in making the decision,
yeah.
I would like to think it would just be, a matter of approval. with
Yeah,
The select board.
I mean, part of the problem that I had this year, and I'll just give you an example, is like, I had no idea what the bushel count was on like any month, really. And the numbers that I was given for November and December were like 2,000 bushels and it actually, after all the reports came in, it ended up being over 5,000 bushels. So, understanding like what's coming in and having a handle on that in order to like react to like making changes and stuff like that, if we predict that, I never make predictions, but if we say, oh, there's probably 10,000 bushels to be caught this season, like, I think it would be good to know each month what is coming in. And so, I don't know if there's a good way to do that. Like, I know you guys are supposed to turn in the trip reports on the 15th the following month for every month. Obviously, we don't get them and JC doesn't check everybody. So like, you can see there's like a huge discrepancy in like what I think is coming out and what is actually coming out. So I don't know.
Any other board members, questions, comments?
I'll make a couple comments. Andy, I do
This
have
is
a
on,
couple.
on the natural resources report.
This has to do with, the limit. I had one person who asked for 6 bushels after February 1st. Needs like automatic thing, I think.
Mhm.
If they're there to catch them, might as well catch them. I think that's a reasonable timeframe to do it, and maybe discussion about, maybe raising the limit the week of Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that high demand is something to discuss. Otherwise, that's it.
Hence the flexibility.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, as far as demand times, and of course, if they seem to be in an abundance, so.
I think we should also like set an alarm for extending the season, just like, you know, like a month and a half ahead of time, start thinking about whether that we need an extension, because whenever we think about it, it's like 1 week before the end of the season, and then it's like a rush. Yeah, so I think like if we can put it on the agenda, you know, like early February or something, just so it's on people's minds, and if people think that it should be extended, we can like react.
How much time does the state need to come down and make that decision?
I don't think they need a lot of time, but I know they don't appreciate like last minute notice, because it's not an emergency.
Well, last time we did it was when Wendy McCray was on the board, and I know that we had to go before the select board, ask them, get their approval, then request it from the state. And it was within the last 3 weeks of March when we did it, and then we went a week into April, and the fishermen were all gung ho, we want to do it, and then only like 2 or 3 guys went out. So all that for,
Hey, if 2 or 3 people want to go out and they're there, okay.
you know, I know Dylan Wallace would be up there.
Mhm.
Like he'd be one of those guys that, like Bruce Cowan, who had a record of days that he went. He's pretty diligent about going.
Yeah.
Would warm temperatures have an effect on that decision being made?
I mean, I think it
Extending
really comes, yeah, it does come down to water temperature and like where the eelgrass is at. I know it's always been like a concern of going like too late, but I think like the last 2 or the first 2 weeks of April, I think we're fine.
Yeah.
Still pretty chilly.
And I had a question about, since I walked the beaches all winter and found minor strandings, but enough that if you felt like it, you go out and collect them, maybe as many as 10 or 12 totes spread out. Mostly between that first pier, that private pier in Wallwinnet and Hartnell Point. A lot of it that I saw was just west of the Octagon House. There's that wetland there and that little creek. And then there was that patch that was on Pocknell Point, which was a lot when I saw it. And then there was stuff that was on Quay's Point. And I'm just wondering, is that just, I think it's all Bass Shoal, and it's all just slowly wandering over, collecting in one spot and being blown again, depending on which way it's going. But it seems like, you know, the last one that I saw, which was the Parkmore area, they were a lot. They were squirting. They were like it had just happened,
Yeah,
and it wasn't low tide yet. But because of when sunset was, I was like, I gotta go, or I'm gonna be walking in the dark. So I walked along, but you know, like I said, behind every rock, it was right on the edge. There was a little moat, and then it was packed with scallops, and they're all just alive.
yeah. I mean, we've seen it before. I can't remember what year it was, but when we had a big set up there, it did like over the course of the winter bounce its way over to like Pocomo, and I think that's what happened with a lot of those strandings that we're seeing closer to the point. I mean, that fascial area was 500 per square meter, like that's the most we've ever seen. So, yeah, I think it's 100% possible. I would be interested to get in the water and see what the densities are now. But I think like we've been over to Wallwinnet where all those strandings were this winter, and it's like barren, there's nothing, so. Including eelgrass, it's like took a beating from all the wind and everything.
And there were a lot of razor clams washed up. I don't know if that was razor clam shells, but on Pocomo, lots of razor clams. My other question was, how'd it go with the pond openings?
It went good. Comic is, I haven't heard today if it's still open or not, because Emma was out. But it was open Monday. Or still open, I should say. And then Sacagea, I know Emma and Jeff were petitioning to get an extension on the permit because it closed on the 31st as far as like being able to reopen it. And it was just unfortunate with the way it happened with the pond openings this year and the weather. It's just there weren't like a lot of good weather windows with the tides that they needed to do the openings with.
I wanted to get there, but you know, when they sacked it, it was just hard weather.
Yeah, we have we just put out a request for proposals for pond openings for 3 years, hoping that we can get some contractor to bid on it, and it's not just about opening the pond and closing it, it's about opening it in a way that will keep it open. To get the amount of flushing that we need and to deal with like, you know, the species that need to come in and out of the pond, so. A little bit more methodical, you know, and thinking about the hydrodynamics of everything and how to open them so that we're not like wasting money and having to reopen them every other day and. Figuring out how long exactly they need to be open.
And somehow get John Coffin back again, would be great. He was, you know, it was an art form,
Yeah,
but
Peter, Dan said he dropped out and we can't
can
get
try to
back.
call back, try calling back.
He's trying to, he said, I don't know if you have to,
in the waiting room.
There's nothing I can
he said,
do.
I'm connected, but it says I've gotta be let in.
Okay. Here we go.
When is the end of the permit for the pond openings, Tara?
The 31st of
Oh.
March.
So what do you have to do to get one later?
I'm not sure like what the petition, it's like set by the state because of the birds. So that's kind of the cutoff point, so I'm not sure like what they're gonna allow or what they're not gonna allow.
I know it's just April 2nd, but do we know how many commercial licenses have been sold?
Yeah.
Shoot, I knew I was gonna forget something.
No, please,
I will
we'll
find out.
find out by the next meeting.
I was just
right?
happy to have a bushel count.
Yes. All right, any more questions or comments?
Did you name the second bioreactor?
Oh, we did. One of our interns suggested a name and then we had a contest on Instagram and it was chosen and the name is Algoritaville in honor of Jimmy Buffett. And so we're calling it Rita. It's a nerdy science name.
Now, the 3 different shellfish you're propagating there, are they all in separate tanks? Or can any of them be done together?
No, they're all on separate things. But they all eat the same food and require the same filtration and stuff, so.
All right, public comment on natural resources report. We'll move into old business, continued review and update of shellfish regulations. Where are we at with this, Tara?
Okay, so I went over the edits from the last time we met. I did not make anything official or send it around because I knew that we were going to be going over the violations. And I also thought that you guys might have some additional things to add to what we had talked about last week. I know Dave Franzuto was very interested in a lot of different things that he was gonna think about. But he's not here, so, I think the plan is to also, send around the aquaculture portion of it to the growers and have them, they can either comment on it and edit it, or we can all have a meeting, like with natural resources and if they rather meet as a group. But I thought today, if there's anything additional from last week that you want to comment on or go over, I can add that. Or if you don't, then we can move right into the enforcement section in the violations.
I have a few things from another stall for the,
Okay.
let's go over that.
Mr. Brace?
I just think we should, well, yeah, I just think that we should get to the end and then you produce the refined
Sure,
document.
that's fair.
No, I'm not saying don't talk, Jim. Overall, I think we should,
No, that's reasonable. I think everyone needs time to look at it anyway, so.
but you're representing some other person who has something to say, so you should say that. But I'm just saying, we should continue and then go back and, because we'll never get done.
Something more, Jim?
Yeah.
Page 140, I think it is. Maybe we already did this in part 2 or on under B. Display of license. I think this is for recreational. Or 260-8 or whatever, I don't remember, 140. It's like third page in,
Okay,
third page in,
260 dash what?
8. Oh, sorry, 264.4 license permit required. Under B, where it says clearly displayed, I think we should change that to be in possession of. Maybe we change that last game.
Possession of license.
Yeah. I think that'd be fair, if you have it under your sweatshirt or something, or on your person.
Yeah. Got it. Anything else?
I think we should go over the violations or whatever we just want to look at next, and then we can come back to this another time.
Right. Find it real quick.
Jim, did you have some recommendations and violations?
I did not know. I know it says we left off last. I gotta look at it again, I didn't look it up, but again,
All right, so violations start with recreational violations on page 158. Anybody have any issues with any of those violations?
I feel like maybe for recreational, maybe it could just be loss of catch for first offense.
No educational opportunity there? Oh, for, what is it? No town license?
License, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the loss of your catch is a good educational piece
Mhm.
for first time offense.
I didn't realize that was the violation, that one. Okay. You wanna look at this?
I'm just curious, when you did go out in the kayak and saw people with recreational scalping and they didn't have their button on,
I don't remember going on a kayak, but
I do,
I was in a kayak.
yep. At Mattocket. I'm just wondering. The best that the shellfish warden can do is be in one place and then try and get to another place. Meanwhile, the people without their licenses are coming out of some other place and getting what they want. So how do you? Pain in the ass, pain in the butt enforcement scenario, right? I mean, how do you? I always see people when I'm push rating who don't have their button on. I'm like, oh, they have it in their pocket or something, or the people who are wearing waders are wearing it on the strap or something like that, and I've got it, on my shoulder or something.
Mhm.
But I always, count 5 or 6 people that don't have it on.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, if you do catch someone, great, assess the violation, but how are you gonna catch people? That means JC has to be right where he thinks most people are gonna be recreational.
yeah, I mean, it's
Hey.
hard, but like in Mattocket, when we last season, I think like being at some of the main points where like Little Neck or Lawrence Landing, where people come out of the water, that's when you can, cause they gotta put their gear on and take it off and put
Cause
their
it's
stuff
good,
together.
I just said, I'm not done with the minutes for our workshop meeting, but I just went through this section of, we were talking about how much you can take. And Jim had something about, he thought that it was more than a bushel of cohogs a week. And then someone said something, or maybe I thought it, like, how are you gonna, how is the shellfish warden gonna check you, You go out every single day and get a bushel of cohogs, and who's gonna know? So,
The only You only check so much stuff. It is,
Right.
Yeah,
it's what it is. It's like, does the building inspector show up at every job site every day? No. You know, I mean, you can't, you can only do so much.
I would think that it'd be easier to check the soft shell plans because it's only a specified season on a certain day. And there's only certain places you can go, so,
mhm. Yeah, it's hard.
okay.
I mean, seriously, so much of this is the honor system in reality. Unless you catch somebody with a gross violation, it's the honor system. Because we can't be everywhere monitoring everything every time. The DEP or the environmental police, DEP has the same problem. Can't be everywhere.
Well, we used to have several deputies. I don't know what happened to that. If there
Yeah, I
could
was
be
gonna say that's the solution is to have multiple monitors, people, deputies monitoring, but the one in Matic, get one in, town, one up wherever, but I'm not sure we're gonna get there.
No, I think there are more efficient ways to monitor fishery catches, and we're looking into it, trying to see how we can improve, because I think what we have is not great. All right, should we move on? Do you guys have any questions about refusal of inspection, over the limit?
I think a lot of violations are covered here and the
Okay.
fines are,
Appropriate?
You know, we worked,
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
redid the shellfish regulations the last time, we worked through that.
Okay, those are all fairly consistent. The only one that was different was refusal of inspection, and that one was higher.
I didn't even know that was allowed.
To refuse inspection? I don't know, maybe if you run fast.
well, somebody could cover their catch in the back of their truck,
Legally, you're supposed to. We'll cover it.
but
Right.
refuse to let it be uncovered.
Sure.
There's a number of ways to refuse and,
Especially in boxes.
what do you have to hide? So, if you've got something to hide, these fines are double what the others are, for refusal of inspection. So it's if I had an extra bushel, I wouldn't want to have to pay $250 for it. So hopefully, that's enough right there to keep somebody from doing that. I don't know how often it happens or if it's ever happened, but there's always, or sometimes, some belligerence.
Okay, commercial violations, we ready to move on?
Yes.
So, sorry, I can go back to the one
Okay,
where it says, I think this is the same as what I asked earlier about the no pin displayed. Like no pin or license on available. Like Peter saying, if you have under your waders or something.
okay. I do have a problem with this too, because I think it's a problem for snorkelers and scuba divers to
Okay.
like have it on them, because it gets all rusty and everything, like. I don't know, I always have a problem with it myself.
I mean, they could probably put it in a watertight bag off their flag.
Yeah,
I've had it,
I mean, as long as you can produce one, I don't see a
Yeah.
problem with that.
yeah,
I haven't worn a wetsuit scalping in probably 15 years, maybe 10, 12 years. I was just going with a pair of shorts and my t-shirt, and the third week I go, I come out blue. But I always have my license in a Ziploc bag and in my pocket or something.
okay.
But maybe. there's
I have a
way-
question. Oh, sorry, go ahead. So I'm sorry, I have a question. Do we check licenses out on the water? 100 yards from the beach, 100 feet from the beach even?
Yes.
we
Check
do?
pins. Check
I'm so-
pins.
No. Do we, as a habit, patrol and check badges out on the water? I've never encountered that. That's why I'm asking. It's always been on shore, right?
I mean, on shore in Matticat, but I think like up in the bends and stuff, the first week of scalloping, I know JC takes the privateer out and approaches.
He
them from
does.
the-
Okay, fine. Yeah, I've given up most of my experience out in Matticat. There where I spend most of my time out in the water. So nobody's ever come out and checked out there in the water. So okay.
Well,
I was just going to say, because I habitually forget it's in the car, right? I'm in there with my catch. You go, oh yeah, it's right here. no problem. But out on the water, I used to wear it all the time, but now it seems I forget. So, okay, if it's actually being checked in the harbor, that's fine. In the Nantucket Harbor.
Honestly, the warden can cover a lot of ground from his pickup truck with a pair of binoculars and, you know, which he does quite often, so he could be watching from afar actually, and this is what the no pin displayed for me is like, boy, you know, when there are a lot of people out there and, you know, you want to know who's licensed or not, like I said, he can cover a lot of ground through a pair of binoculars, so I can understand it, you know, rusting for divers, but how many people are diving and snorkeling? I know there are some, but anyhow.
All right. Any more, Jim, on the
No,
recreation?
not there, no.
Okay, commercial violations. Refusal of inspection. Everyone good with that? Undersized seed. Or seed and undersized shellfish, I should say.
I have a question on just pertaining to that one just in the past, like say somebody get caught with questionable skulls or they called them seed and they had a violation again 3 years later. Is that,
Like cumulative?
yes,
I'm not sure. It doesn't say anything in here about that,
Okay.
so. Is that a rumor that you've heard?
no, I'm just curious if that's the case or not.
Can ask
Like,
about it. I
you
know
lose
that
your
it's-
license if you on your, I guess,
Yeah,
for your
should-
fence, but
I know
Should
that,
these apply annually, or are they, again, over the life?
That's a great question, because I'm looking at this, and just interpreting it as being for the season.
It doesn't say that, so.
But it doesn't say that, so.
I was just gonna say, when we first did a real revamping of the shellfish regulations, I was on the board. And I remember how heated and intense the discussion was on the seed violation in particular. And it had been decided at that time that you didn't get a clean slate every year. You weren't gonna be able to game the system in that way and say, oh, well, I can take them and I'm up to my third offense and then it resets. We said it's cumulative throughout your experience. And that
Yeah.
was the reason, and that was the rationale, was because we didn't want anybody gaming it. If you're taking seed and it's habitual, that's just gotta come to an end, and there wasn't a lot of forgiveness in the room for that going on. And so it was included in the regs at that time. I don't know why it doesn't still show up there, but
yeah, I'll have to check.
I think that's kind of been cleared up a little bit too with the gauge size that they now have. There was some
Mr.
questions.
Chairman?
Ginger, please.
Yeah, I think it's been a long time, but in the old days that there was an error allowance of 20%. And there was one fellow, I heard, at least, I didn't miss it myself, but supposedly every 21st scallop when he was culling, he tossed in the seed. So, you know, that's kind of a, I don't know how you'd regulate for that really, except to just look at them all, but the desire to game the system seems to be part of the fun, if it's still the way it was in the old days. Pardon my
20%.
sarcasm.
Thank you, Ginger. And Matt, thank you for that input. I think of a recent, I don't know, one or two seasons ago, a seasoned scalloper, active since the early 70s. Made the mistake of having too many seed, but and was very embarrassed by it afterwards. And but I think it was during a nub time, and there was an eyesight issue. And you know, if there can be some discretion of the warden, on this, but I don't wanna see much leniency either. So, because it can be blatant as well. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I am of the persuasion that Virginia just mentioned too, that the 20% was always, or 20 over in each bushel was the margin of error, and I felt that that was also always in the regulations. I mean, no one's gonna want us, punish anyone who made an honest mistake. And that's why they said you can have up to 20 per box of stuff that's questionable.
But not obviously seed.
Right,
Not
but
the
not
5%.
obvious. Yeah,
Right.
like if it's like 2 and,
Creates.
yeah, just like an eighth off or even the growth line. And I think that speaks to what you're saying about discretion. I think that the warden always has discretion because he's the one who's looking at it and deciding whether,
I mean, the years we're fishing outside, none of that stuff would pass
no, none of
gauge
it.
right now. That was up to exactly the way the rules are written. So, I mean, the last page here does say discretion of the shellfish warden. Anyway,
Do we know if we've had a violation this winter?
I asked JC when I was working on a letter, how many violations and what they were, because we track them, and he said there were none.
Really?
I don't know if there were only verbal warnings handed out this year, but typically, I mean, I have a chart, typically there's 30 to 50 violations every season.
not just seed violation.
I'd have to look back and see. A lot of them are broken boxes, like, that's.
Right.
is that including recreational?
No.
All right.
All right, so red flag fishing. Any problems there? It looks like the next one also taking of shellfish using unapproved methods has similar fines.
I think that one maybe could be more discretion of the shellfish warden, depending on what method the person might be using.
Okay,
But I think that's up for discussion. Just want to leave it the way it is.
Is there a violation for taking out of season?
yes,
Cause I always see.
Taking a closed day would be the same thing.
yeah,
I didn't bring my sheet because the type's too small for me to read it. Sorry,
you could have told me, I would have printed an extra large.
I
for you.
could have just printed it.
Okay, let's see, fishing on a suspended license. Good. Shellfish in enclosed areas. Taking shellfish on closed days / hours. Poaching goes to the state. Lack of proper permits. Greater than 5% bycatch.
We define poaching.
From an aquaculture lease, it says.
Okay, does that mean like breaking into cages or? I mean. Having just gone through the minutes. I guess when we get to the aquaculture, we'll consider it, but. That. The person who keeps. Who has their oyster farm that's open. Free range, I guess.
Vendors.
Yeah, I don't know how you're gonna regulate that. And I remember one time I was out there with my dog, it was low tide and all the cages were exposed, and I took a photo. And put it on Facebook and Instagram, and then Tara sent me an email. Discreetly saying, don't do that again, because you don't want to attract people to go and get oysters. Which, of course, I understood when I got the email from her, but. If there's gonna be oysters that are gonna be floating around. How are you gonna say? Oh, wait, that's mine, Does it have to drift over to the other side of the channel for you to take it, so anyway.
Well, I think comes down to clearly marking the leases and having the right signage. But yeah, it has drift over to quays and that sort of thing.
I mean, that's, if, I like an 8 oysters, I wouldn't care, but.
All right, taking shellfish out of season. No permit for saleable bycatch.
So does that mean bycatch you are selling your stuff that could be sold?
No permit for saleable bycatch. So I guess if you are,
Going to sell it?
Conk.
yeah,
That's what it's.
Co-op included in
Yeah.
that? Did you skip greater than 5% bycatch?
that was, no.
Okay,
Did you have a comment for that?
it was just, curious of what we're considering bycatch, anything else but.
I think
scallop.
anything that the permit does not allow for,
Okay,
like your scalloping, that's it.
Anything that comes up, it's yours, take it.
If you have a permit though, then
If
it
you
isn't
have a permit.
bycatch, is it?
No, that's what it's, yeah.
Unless you're using a new problem that,
and as long as it's in season.
right?
We good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, over daily bushel limit, extra box and or partial box. Tags on boxes is the next one.
Boy, this is a state thing. The tags on the boxes, I hear so many people
It is.
complain about it. But if it's a state thing and there's no way to get around it, then
And the violation that's listed is per box too, so it would be times 5.
That's pretty steep.
Yeah,
I don't think, I think it just to be,
a blanket.
that's what I think.
Okay. I'll add that
I mean,
suggestion.
It's the other thing, it's like, yeah, they're in my truck and it's pouring rain. I didn't do them on the boat. I mean,
Mhm.
filling out in the cab, so the pen might mark it.
My only thought is if you get into second, third and fourth violations, clearly the first time,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it. If you get up, then you have 5 boxes and it's your 4th offense. I say, let it be $1,000 per
yeah,
box.
sure. I mean,
well, it seems there's some type
still
of
$1,000, pretty
redundancy.
good whack.
Yeah,
Because the tag is actually supposed to follow the catch, but with scallops, it really can't, correct? Because once they're dumped into a 5-gallon bucket after they're opened. And how long has this one been in play?
I'm not sure.
Um,
Do you know how long tags on boxes?
2000
Since
somewhere.
like,
Really?
I mean, I feel like it wasn't even that old, like maybe
I
2010.
feel like it happened when I came.
2010.
I remember it was like something we just did like the first part of the season and then so nobody even looked at
Yeah.
it.
And whatever that year is, that's when the state implemented it?
I feel like the first time I ever did it was like 2015.
I think it was always in the books, but it was not
Enforced.
enforced because they knew the scallops go into the bucket after they're shucked and they don't, the tag doesn't continue with them like a quahog or oyster would. You know,
Right.
Hmm.
so I think that's why it wasn't really pushed before. The EPO shows up, they wanna see the tag on the box.
Well, as does the shellfish warden.
Right.
Okay,
All right, I put a comment by that one, if you wanna discuss it further, whether it's per box or just like a blanket violation. Next one, shipping live shellfish off island for purposes other than consumption. Big no-no.
and has that? So,
I mean, people, you'd be surprised. People
Well-
want shellfish to like reproduce in Nantucket Bay Scalp all the
Yeah.
time, and people want to harvest them here. And now you can harvest them here and take them off island, pretty much, so.
Take them off and you think you're gonna spawn them somewhere else and get them going, like at your home beach or whatever.
No, I mean, like, there's so many different entities that have called, like. Island Creek, for instance, asked if they could have some brood stock from Nantucket Harbor, and I said, I'd love to give you some, but I can't, because I would get killed probably. So they had to source them from somewhere else,
You had to come down here and steal some, or
probably,
It's like you can do the recreational purpose
as long as
anyway.
I don't do it, then.
isn't that the same problem where the state didn't want you moving them from the harbor over to Mattocket without, knowing what, if there's anything wrong with them?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that's-
yeah.
Okay,
All right, the next one is fishing early/late. Failure to submit monthly catch reports. I don't think that's enforced.
It should be.
Yeah.
That state or town, you mean?
Both, don't you have to
Okay.
submit it to the state
Yes.
also? So I don't know what the state does if you don't
Okay.
submit it, but,
They'll send you hate mail.
okay. Dredges in excess of 35 pounds, again, this is a per dredge fine, so it could be times 8. Could be $400 for your first fine if they're over 35.
Maybe if we go back to having Sheila do the annual free inspections of boats for safety and weighing of dredges, that by then we will have produced some sort of document, sort of brochure that we can hand them and say, these are the things you gotta worry about. These are violations that you're gonna pay for if after this inspection, you go rogue on us.
Got it. Exceeding bushel limit when picking up a color.
I think I had a question on that one from another spot. Let me see if I can find it here. I think the regulation of 2.5 bushels you can only have. And I don't see why you couldn't be in possession of what you're allowed to catch yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
5, but I mean, I think that should be changed to 5 if wherever that rules in here.
okay.
See if I can find some tell you, but.
Okay. Mounding. Broken/altered bushel boxes.
can we go back to mounding? I mean,
Mounding.
yeah, it's just, I wish everybody mounts. I mean, who has a level box unless they're not filling all 5? If they're falling off on the dock, that's one thing, but when they've got a slight mound to them, I guess this is another discussion of the of the Shellfish warden, which I have to say probably is very lenient with this, unless he sees them falling off the box, so. All right, that's continuing. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I have to say, like, if you're looking at like the consistency on these violations and stuff, like we just looked at, like dredges per dredge or per box, like mounding is not like per box, it's just like a blanket generalization, and same thing with the next one, broken altered bushel boxes. Is it per box, or is it just that you have they're broken? Like, so I guess we just need to decide, at some point, whether you want this to be a blanket violation or just like per box or per offense. I don't know.
Have there been readily available boxes to purchase on island?
Not that I'm aware of, but I also don't know.
We had that discussion a while ago
Right,
about how the quality of the boxes allows for you to, now the low quality of boxes now allows for you to mess with them. Put them in the oven, whatever, warm them up, stretch the plastic so you can fit more in them. And I think it was Dave saying that the boxes used to be more solid, more rigid, harder to, if they broke, but there was no way to stretch them or anything, I guess.
I mean, the vineyard uses bushel baskets,
right.
which hold more than a box.
Mhm.
So we're arguing over peanuts at this point for that, stretching or not. Whatever.
One of the things that I've always advocated for, and even back when I was on this board, was giving the fishermen, instead of it being 5 boxes and spending the whole season, there was just so much contention over the mounting issue. that it seemed to make sense just to change the reg and say no mounting 6 boxes. Being the limit, you're gonna get the same as what you would get with 5 mounted boxes. No one has to fool around, and then you just have the stick across the top. Done.
Then they'll get mounted.
But that's the thing,
That's
then
what
you
happened.
can't, but you're not like bickering at that point. You're like, look, we threw you a bone on giving you the 6. You're getting as much as you would have gotten with 5 mounted. Just seemed like it would cease so many arguments, because it's a lot easier to just, I don't know, that was always something that came up, but nobody ever really decided that, I guess. If people don't think that's a good idea, then that's fine too.
Well, it's almost like, we quickly forget and, it's like, they need to be constantly reminded, remember, you're getting this 6th box to keep from mounting.
Yeah,
It's not just 6 boxes across the
right,
board.
that's why you're
Yeah.
getting the extra boxes, so we don't have to go and have this argument every day.
Mhm.
And have people like, oh, well, they got torn, you should have seen those boxes yesterday and they walked.
But that reason for raising from 5 to 6. And it needs to be like specified.
Spelled out,
reminded,
spell it out, yeah.
Who was the scalper who? Was the scalper who would put them in rows? So there was somebody who would do that,
I haven't been known to do that.
like slices of toast, a bit more in, that was you?
Only OCD fishermen. do that.
Someone who doesn't want to get in too early
Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
yeah.
and who doesn't want to open.
Mm.
We make a lot more money, squeezing those things in there and not opening them and not
Is there
coming
a
in too early.
Noticeable amount of more,
You can get an extra pound legally by doing that
By-
per
by
box.
fitting them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then people are like, he gets in at noon every day. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Okay, moving on. Again, no dive flag displayed. And then the next 4 are new additions to the violation section, for the conch fishery. So this was something that Dave Fonzito, I felt like had some stuff to say about it. The fines are per pot and they're like double any other commercial violation, that's listed here.
I don't know if they need to be double the other ones. I would say like be equal to the other ones. For one, I would say like untagged trap, like Dan might want to talk about this if he's on there, but
He's on there.
tags can break. Be like, if you can't produce one though, then you might have a problem, but tags do come out of traps.
Dan, have you seen this?
In regards to what?
Violations, excess conch pot, first offense, $100 fine per pot. And it goes up, second, third, and fourth, untagged conch pot, $100 fine per pot, fishing conch on closed ears, $50 fine per pot. Improperly marked or unmarked pot or trawl, $100 fine per pot. And each one of these goes up,
Double.
with, second, third, and fourth
Not quite.
violation.
I haven't seen them, but if the town issues the tags at a proper time and you don't have a tag in the trap, I don't have a problem with getting in trouble for it, but I don't think the fines need to be incredibly ridiculous. Like the state doesn't fine you per pot if you got caught without tags. It's just a violation. I don't think they may have changed it to per pot, but in my past experience, it wasn't per pot. It was just, you didn't have tags in them. You're in trouble. So
What has the likelihood been on losing tags from your pots?
it depends what kind of tags they are. Like if depending on the tag count, just say it was 50 tags and the town goes out and hauls your gear and you got 49 tags in 50 traps, you know, I don't think that's a big deal. You know, if you had more traps in than you were allowed tags, then there's a problem. So, but if you, like I said, if you're missing 1 or 2 tags out of however many there are, you would know because you'd look at the tag and you could write it in your logbook and text the warden and say, hey, listen, I got 2 traps that I don't have the tags. I don't know where they went. If you want to come out and haul the gear with us and count them while we haul them, fine. Something like that. But I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but who knows?
Was it JC that added this?
Yes,
And what was his rationale?
I think you're gonna have to ask JC. I asked for him to show up tonight since we were going over violations, but
I think it'd be the same as the scalding fines, I don't see a reason to be more.
yeah, it's a little arbitrary.
It's not as if there's, as many conch fishermen as there are scallopers, and that,
At most right now, there may be 2 of us.
and I know that the price of conch is what, I don't know what the price of conch is now, but I know that when you pick up how much is it?
I don't know what the price is this year, but I heard it was down last year. And I've talked to a couple of off-island buyers, and they're both skeptical of taking somebody new on because the market isn't in that good a shape. So by the sounds of that, the price is not that good. So I think at the height of it, I was getting about 310 from Charlie years ago. And I heard that that's what the buyers are going to be getting for them this year. So who knows what the price would be on them? I don't know.
But it's not as lucrative an industry as base golfing, so you're not, I guess what I was getting at was the fishermen aren't compelled to violate. It's not, I don't know, I'm not a fisherman, but it's like you're not gonna, if you're in a violating mind, you might gain more by violating the shellfish, the base golf bylaw, trying to get away with that because your payoff will be better. That's all I was thinking.
Well,
No,
I would think that, considering there are there's so little interest in fishing conch. And I think personally, I believe it's important that this fishery continue. This excessive amount of fine, could, distract or, deter somebody from even considering getting into it. Just my opinion. I'd like to see these fines,
At least in the first,
certainly
First,
decrease the
second
first
one.
time, yeah.
but I think it said, I'm sorry, Andy, I think
No,
it says, looking back over the years, I think it says something about our conch fishery when the same guys have been doing it all this time. There's no new guys that have come along that have been inspired by the windfall of being a conch fisherman. And maybe it's a different thing on the vineyard because it's more of them and they go everywhere, but and knowing Matt and knowing Dan and knowing Jim and how you guys have all worked it out, there's huge respect and care for the fishery. So it doesn't, it seems like excessive, knowing that you guys are going to take care of it. You're not going to intentionally break the law. It'd be an accident or something that might happen, like a tag came off and then boom, I just think that it's in certain fish, in certain species, it definitely has to be the letter of the law. This should be more the spirit of the law, I think.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, I'll mark that for further discussion and for decreasing the fines to represent the other commercial violations. So the last three that we have are aquaculture violations, and these are also new. The first one is not having a logbook. The second one is harvest, storage, or culling outside of approved areas without a proper permit. And the last one is non-adherence to state Vibrio protocols.
The logbook, is that a state or town thing?
It's a state for Vibrio.
Is that the Vibrio logbook you're talking about?
I would assume. Unless the Vibrio log is covered in the Vibrio protocols, but I thought the logbook was, that was the only logbook that you guys used was for Vibrio.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah,
I mean, most people have their log of what they're doing, but,
well, I don't think they care.
well, that's what I was gonna say. It's
Sorry.
gotta be a Vibrio log
Okay.
that they're looking for.
All right, I will clarify Vibrio about that. And I guess, you know, like I said, I'm gonna email these to the growers and have them review them and comment on them, and if they wanna have a meeting or discuss it further, then I will let you guys know.
We're gonna be talking about washing gear.
Yeah, there's no something about
Yeah.
that in here too. I was gonna say that.
So,
I think
yeah,
that-
there were
I
two
think that-
things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think this needs to be discussed with all the growers probably. If that's possible.
Yeah, there was one thing about power washing on site. Because there was some power washing like off of the lease site, we wanted to follow up on, and then I just looked in the aquaculture regulations and written for retrieval of gear, you know, if it becomes displaced or ends up on shore. JC had written in that that was a $300 fine, but I didn't see it here in the violations, so. We'll have to decide if that is to be included or not.
You know, questions,
Mr. Graves.
you know, our most recent run-in with a aquaculture farmer. One of the issues was he was issued a stop work order and he didn't comply with that. He just went ahead and did what we asked him not to do. And he, you know, we all know that he eventually transferred his license to another person, but I don't ever remember him getting, I don't ever remember any. Was there a violation? Was that a violation? He was issued a stop work order by Jeff Carlson. He didn't stop work. In fact, he pulled gear, took the good gear, cleaned it off and put seed in and put it in the water, and he wasn't supposed to do that. I don't want to relive it, but it was a blatant violation, and I don't know if that's a thing that we should add, because that was anyway. Is that ring any bells? Is that,
Um,
or maybe it's already covered and I don't realize it.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
We
No.
definitely don't wanna relive that.
no,
The one question on the sinking and floating of gear for the winter, do we come up with a date for,
No, we were gonna talk about that with the growers to see what was a reasonable date for them. For that. All right, and that's it. Unless you have any additions you want me to add right now, or you can email them to me.
but weren't we gonna go? I thought what got this whole thing going is we needed to go through the aquaculture regulations and the changes you wanted to make, and we were gonna review them and then the rest of the shellfish regulations got tacked on. So did you want to do that at another time or?
I mean, we did go through the aquaculture portion of it,
Okay,
right, last week.
all right.
Um,
I wasn't paying attention, or I haven't gotten that part in the minutes yet.
Everyone was really tired.
Okay,
I think that needs to be reviewed more with the growers themselves.
Yeah, and I think that will come back and
That's,
go over everything again, because I'm sure there's some like wording and stuff that might need adjusting.
so maybe we could specifically invite the growers or tell them that we're doing this so that they know that after this, it's a public hearing at the select board meeting, and if it gets adopted, if they approve it, then it's law or regulation.
Okay. Jim, did you have anything additional you wanted to?
not right now.
Okay.
Leave that one today.
All right. Thank you guys for
Thank you.
your thoughts and edit.
All right, there's nothing else on reviewing and updating the shellfish regulations for this meeting. We'll move forward. The Harbor Watershed Public Information Outreach Ideas. Scott, I thank ever so much. Thank you for possibly reaching out if you haven't yet.
No, I have two
Understand?
emails out to Jennifer Christensen
Mhm.
and haven't had any response back to them. But first of all, I kind of like want to make sure she's the right person. Gonna go through, and I think she needs to reach out to a few other of her colleagues because she is a special ed teacher. So, you know, I
Okay.
think now that I've, got my emails out there and I wonder who the audience is and age groups, so you can gear stuff. So I included that in what I want to know who we're talking
Yes,
and how far we can dummy it down. So, I will follow up with her again this week.
and which school is she in, do you know?
Didn't say which school she was in.
Right.
Just said she was a special ed
Not to
teacher.
interrupt you, but does anybody know if, is Ashley Harrisman still a teacher?
No,
No,
she got done.
not with Concom, but
She's done with
School's
Johnstown and done with school. She quit at the beginning of this year, I think.
because she would have been perfect for this.
I mean, I will find somebody
Great
else if she's
class, right.
not the right person.
Well, also, at the Nantucket New School, Matt Little.
Oh, yeah.
He's an ecology science person at the new school.
Okay. Matt Little.
It's Liddle. Very approachable, very nice guy.
Maybe investigate who the science teacher is, or science
that's-
teachers at. the high
I was
school.
hoping that she was gonna be listed as a science teacher or
Right,
somebody
Right.
in,
Well, she attended our forum and expressed interest.
Yep.
So,
well, I'm gonna continue to figure out how we get into the school system.
thank
And
you.
we will pursue that. Dave Franzen, who did give me the entire presentation that we did back in September. And I will, once I find out who we're talking to, figure out how to modify that down
Mhm.
to,
Yeah,
again, not to turn kids off.
exactly, yeah. Don't want to lose the attention span, so.
So more to come on that.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Anybody else?
One comment on that. You might
Yeah.
reach out to Sustainable Nantucket because they have a couple people in the school system. They have one running the farm to school program where they actually bring kids on at a little growing station out at the school. And they have Jill Houseman, I think, is a new person. I think she's teaching classes in the school. I'm not sure. But you might check with it was Sustainable and see if there's maybe some kind of tie-in. They'd be interested in picking this up.
Yeah, Jill Husband is the new Mentor Farm manager for Sustainable Nantucket's farm, and she does teach classes at the high school 3 days a week. Farm-related classes. And then I can't remember Ella's last name, but there's a woman named Ella that basically runs she works for Sustainable as well and runs the vegetable patch there on that big field.
Okay.
But I would start with Jillian.
Okay.
And the number for Sustainable is 228-3399. Okay,
I do have that.
okay. I got her cell number, but I probably shouldn't give it out. So,
Okay.
Not without her, okay.
right.
So the outreach ideas, we good with this discussion for tonight? Thank you, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Bossy, and Mr. Brace. Harbor Action Plan Committee. Should have recommendations. Do you want
Well, Dave's not here.
to speak on this? Okay.
Dave's not
Mr.
here.
Brace?
Well, I'm not gonna speak on it, but, well, I'll speak on one item, but, Dave did say he was gonna be here, so maybe we should wait till he is gonna be here.
Okay,
And our next meeting is the 16th. And the harbor plan's next meeting is actually the 22nd, so it'll be within that
okay,
period of time.
all right.
But I did want to say, you know, don't get mad at me, Dave Bossy, but, I took the liberty of calling Jessie Bell at the land bank to ask her about Petra Landing. Since we always seem to talk about it and we always express our desires for what we would like to do with the property had we controlled it, or at least the land bank's ear. And she says that a butter that had been giving them so much problems with all the lawsuits did not file an appeal during the 60-day period. So that's out of the way, but they've now applied for a Chapter 91 license for whatever they're gonna do with the property. And there will be an appeal period for that. And they're also getting help from the Woods Hole group on, how to make that portion of the harbor resilient and have that work with what the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee is recommending in the Coastal Resilience Plan. She said that the dinghy docks are, that's definitely something that's in the plan, but she was emphatic about having some sort of commercial component where a boat could pull up and unload catch and stuff could be put on that boat. It's not part of what they want to or can do, because their mission is conservation, recreation, and agriculture. It doesn't include commercial fishing.
Like
I'm just-
unloading agricultural.
I mean, it's a stretch to say, but I'm just saying, you know. And she said, we have your current letter and we're aware of what you guys want to do. And so I said that, once they get to the point where they submit refined plans, you can expect a letter from us pushing our issues. So just wanted to let everybody know.
Any discussion about the house that was torn down and is, Mickey Rowland's office building getting moved over to that lot where the,
No, I didn't ask about that.
yeah, that didn't come up.
Well, no, it's not that it didn't come up. I just wanted to check in with her about the things that we're concerned about. So.
Well, it's a portion of progress. And, you know, so the neighboring house not owned by Land Bank has been demolished.
Right,
And through the grapevine, allegedly that building, the person who owns that lot
gonna move
wants
over.
the building from the land bank, which the land bank wants to get rid of. It's a very tall building, as we all know, so a very convenient direction to
Yeah.
move it in. You know, if a commercial component can't be added in here, I'm still, you know, I look at that, where that building is, and I see a boat ramp there. Limited to 20 foot or less, if that can be done, you know. But
I'm not.
I'd just like to throw it out there as a suggestion to them. We can talk about this more, of course, in a few.
I'm not saying that I'm not trying to deter at all, just, I was curious, I wanted to know what was up. And
Yes.
Since the lawsuit has been dealt with, I'm sure that the abutter will look at the Chapter 91 thing and decide one way or the other, maybe get. And what Jesse did say is that, you know, it's been appealed so many times by this person that something about how the more it's appealed, the less and less of a chance it has being recognized, you know, the appeal going the way of the abutter. So maybe the person will see the chapter 91 license as a new opportunity. So-
Exactly, yeah.
So,
Well, Peter, thank you for reaching out, because this really, it answers a lot of questions, about it, how it's moving forward, so thank you. Anybody else? We're really back on, the Harbor Action Plan Committee recommendations. Anything on that and or Petrol Landing? Mr. Sherlin?
Are we still on Dave's thing with the boat ramp or the pier? There now.
We were on Harbor Action Plan
Oh,
Committee.
sorry.
Should have recommendations, and Mr. Brace kind of added in Petrol Landing with that as well. With some discussion, we can. If there's no more discussion on either of those, we'll go into removing Marine Department from Police Department Administrative Jurisdiction, which is another recommendation from Mr. Franzuto. Him not being here, if there's no discussion on this, we'll go forward. If there is discussion, say so now,
I
Mr.
have
Anderson.
more of a statement. If we're gonna help Sheila accomplish this, if she should reciprocate and show up to these meetings or put in a report. I know we say that all the time.
Yeah.
But
So
we're
I-
giving her support
I
and she
emailed
can
her.
give us information.
I emailed her last, or I texted her, she's on vacation in Florida.
I just want to go on record,
Yeah, no, I mean,
Thank
she
you,
says,
Scott.
she requested, can we wait till she gets back, and she'll gladly come. Cause she knows that we support her,
Yeah.
so.
Anybody else on this subject? Ferry embarkation fee. Another agenda item of Mr. Franzuto. Any comments? Questions? Next is alternate pier boat ramp at the West Jetty. Also, Mr. Franzuto's
Did he have
agenda item.
a drawing or anything of this?
Yes.
Oh, he does, okay. I haven't seen that.
He sent an email
Okay,
showing the Oak Bluffs steep authority here.
I had some issues for a while, I couldn't get his emails, but.
When you go down there at low tide, you can see, it's a dry area. Actually, it's very dry area, at low tide and, at first thought of this seems a little extreme but, when you really digest this thought, in a lot of ways, it makes sense. So, I'm glad that it's on our agenda and, I look forward to more discussion on it. Especially with Mr. Franzuto in attendance.
Can I see that?
We've got a lot of support from the sandbar. That happens,
Yeah, right.
all the business.
Well, it might take some pressure off of all the fishing that takes place at Brant Point as well. People can fish off the pier. Brant Point seems to get a lot of use and
And
yes. Sorry, Tara.
I just have a comment. I was looking at, let's go commercial, Nantucket commercial fishing. Can we bring it back? I don't know what year it was written, but it was definitely like a long time ago. And this exact picture is like in there. So it's been an idea that's been around for quite a long time,
Yes,
which I didn't realize.
yes.
Okay.
Well, and having a second pier for the steamship to be able to land at if the channel were blocked beyond this. Has been prior discussion. Dave will be able to say how long it's been
Mhm.
talked about or thrown around and nothing ever really coming from it. Any other comments on this one? Final clarification of the official harbor thermometer and red flag. I spoke with JC, he said the thermometer is gonna be weather underground. Can somebody explain weather underground to me? I mean, where is the thermometer located, even though I realize it'll be accessed online, But when we were talking about the NOAA thermometer, we know that that one is located at Steamboat Wharf. Still can't be looked at in person, but can be online. I just felt like that location is so much closer to where people fish. Where is Weather Underground's thermometer located?
They utilize the NOAA buoy.
Oh.
It's just a website and an app that you can connect to different buoys based on your location.
So they can
I
use the
thought we
sound.
agreed that it was gonna be NOAA.
It is the NOAA buoy. It's just what Weather Underground
Being
displays it
accessed.
also. So you can see it on the NOAA website, because I just wrote this into the regulations also, because I just looked it up today.
Where is that? Is that the one?
I think it's that steamship.
And that building that Dave was talking about, that little metal building. But is it, remember Bruce Beebe said there was, NOAA had a 6-minute delay, so is there a delay between NOAA and when Weather Underground puts it up?
Not sure, but the buoy number is NTK M3.
In TKN3?
M3.
And as far as red flag goes, well, any more discussion on the thermometer?
And the thermometer that'll take effect starting next season.
He said he has already reached out to the scholopers. And I failed to ask him if he's created a group text and including all licensed scholopers with his messaging versus just who is active. As Samantha Danette brought up at that meeting, that you know, there are licensed scholopers who may not be active every day, but may jump on board on any given day. And they deserve to be notified as well. I believe, you know, that this, and this was part of a 3-part discussion with JC, the thermometer, the red flag, and communication. And the line of communication needs to be, it needs to include all licensed commercial scholopers. I feel that's only fair. It may mean a little more for JC, but I think if he sets up a group text with all of them, that it's not any more work to do that, so. As far as red flag, where it's located specifically is what we're talking about here. We talked at our last meeting about possibly locating it at Brant Point. And he felt that that's federal property, putting a pole up on that pier may not be an option. And he will be exploring getting a pole back up at the Marine Department office.
Right.
That's where we stand with that.
That's where it's always been, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you at least ask him to explore having it at the hatchery?
It is a town pier, so throw that out there.
Yeah, because I thought it was gonna be at the hatchery pier.
Oh, did he think we meant
The
Grand
Coast
Point
Guard,
Coast Guard
yeah.
Station?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't believe so.
The building it's federal, but the
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 land
land is,
is
the
federal.
building belongs to the town officially. We have the deed.
okay. And which,
And the
right,
pier as well.
And the pier is a town pier. We have signs say.
yeah,
"Long
we should
Beach Ticket."
get him to, well, get that information from him, I guess.
All right. He probably knows that information. I didn't know the information during the
But
discussion.
For Matt and Tara and Jim, do you think if you had a flagpole there, you would be able to see that all the way up harbor? Is that more visible than?
You see it, if you're going out,
Ginger's in the waiting room. Sorry.
you'd be more likely to see it if you're going out, didn't know the temperature was below and you saw it. Usually you kind of have an idea. You go down there.
Yeah, I guess if you. I would think. Before you even want to go and look and see if the flag's flying, you're looking at your phone and looking at Weather Underground, and if it's iffy, then you're gonna go look, but then to go look at the hatchery. Well, you can see it from a lot of places, right? So,
See it from Children's Beach too.
So
it's clear to me that I need to go scalping, so I know what I'm talking about some of the time.
Any more discussion on this, more, communication we need to have with JC on this?
Seems to me like what you were saying about the group text that goes out to all the fishermen is a decent idea. I mean, it seems like everybody's got cell phones now. Just make
His
that
concern
list.
was maybe some fishermen don't want other fishermen to have their phone. And
If it's an email or something, does that have to be on there? Like when I get a, what?
well, he's
Do they
been
always-
doing it via texting.
But you can do blind, copies of an email
Mhm.
and nobody sees.
Right. And then you just hit send on your email and everybody can turn on their notification for that and then you don't even really need a flag at that point, except to just have a redundancy.
Because all he has to do is set it up in his contacts, go in and be able to pull that up on the screen for email. And then he
Amber alert.
We do a series of flares, you know.
No, boy. Simple thing, anyway.
Okay. Duly noted, a little more discussion with JC on communication. And also a clarification of the pier and the building being town-owned at that point. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Matt. Any more discussion on this? Scallop shell pile hazard at the landfill, any news with that, Mr. Anderson?
Nothing new on that.
All right. Well, we'll bring it up next year if it continues.
It was dry on Sunday.
All right, was there much for scallop shell there? Or did
Very
they have
little.
to push back? Yeah.
Well, it's those,
Still this is an issue that makes sense. Ginger brought it up and Scott has taken it upon himself to communicate with the DPW about it, but not only, having foul water crossing the road, I find myself slowing down to about 5 miles an hour and I cross it because I don't want that up in my fender wells. But also when it gets cold at night and it freezes, it's right on the corner. It's not safe. So thank you both to Ginger and Scott on that. Nothing new under health of the harbors. New business conch harvesting discussion. We have a couple of emails from Mr. Pront. He's still with us.
Yep.
Dan, would you like to present what you have sent to us, please?
What do you mean by that? Basically what the email said?
Yeah, and your thoughts and reasoning behind it. Just so the public that's listening in or watches this on YouTube later has an understanding. So you don't have to read it word for word. I know you'd like to switch out the odd even years to even odd, so this summer
Yeah,
can
I can,
harbor can be fished.
I can explain it. Basically, as the current regulations read, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, the town issues 90 trap tags between the 3 state licensed fishermen that hold state license for conchs. As it runs right now, the town's harbors, both town and Mattocket, are closed on the even numbered years, but open on the odd numbered years. What I would like to see changed is have 1 year open in town, say the even years in town in Mattocket would be closed. And then the following season, Mattocket would be open on the odd numbered year and town would be closed. Therefore, not really geared for a boat like mine or a boat like Jimmy's or even Matt's, because there's not a lot of water in Mattocket Harbor, but I'm thinking for a smaller boat, if you were to fish out of an outboard or something, you could fish conchs in either Mattocket Harbor every year or Town Harbor every year and if managed properly like they currently are, I think we all somewhat agree. You could have a fishery every year, which would benefit not only the conch harvester, but the shellfish harvesters as well because of their diet. Is basically it in a nutshell. There's a few other regulations, like right now, if per se one of the 3 license holders decides that he doesn't want to fish, he can write a letter to the natural resource department stating, I'm not going to fish this year. I'd like to transfer my tags to one of the other guys that are going to fish. Either it would be Matt or I or Jimmy Ellis at the time. Where I would like to say that if one of the 3 of us doesn't buy our license, say 2 of the 3 buy their permit, then only the 2 of us would qualify for those current 90 tags. So just say Matt and I bought our license and Jimmy didn't, then Matt and I would split the 90 tags without having to get authorization from Jimmy because he didn't buy his license. Something along those lines in regards to that. It would save having to write letters and stuff like that. And if you don't buy your license, I don't think you should have a say in what your tags, where your tags, supposedly your tags would go. And then the other thing I would like to change possibly is we've discussed it in the past about the limit of 90 traps between the 3 license holders. There's been discussion of raising that to 150 total between the 3 license holders. Just because it's 30 traps isn't really worth hauling in town, in such a big area as in town, whereas 50, is more worth your while in my thoughts. Therefore, if it would go back to the licensing, if 2 guys bought permits, then the 2 guys would split the 150 traps. And I can tell you from my history doing it, and Matt as well, if one guy, you wouldn't fish 150 traps in town, because you'd fish the conchs out in about 2 weeks. It's just, you wouldn't do it. Like I just think if all 3 of us decided to go fishing, like I said, 30 traps isn't really worth hauling, whereas 50 would be. That's my thoughts. And I guess that's about it.
Matt, please.
I read Dan's, proposal, the first part of it, and, it's actually really good. I thought that, it's probably the way the regulation should have been written originally. The way that he lays it out here, I think is verbatim the way the law should be. I would support that. I do disagree with Dan. I still think that the limit for, the harbor is 90. I do agree with Dan that, 30, I mean, when the harbor's good, 30 is still totally worth it, especially if you're going outside to haul your other 170. Sometimes you just wanna get in and out, and if you can put all your 30 in an area and, that's an hour and a half, you're done, and then you go out with your day. And the reason why we did it that way was, for that reason. But what Dan says in this first email is right. I don't remember a time when all 3 fishermen were ever fishing the harbor at the same time. And the reason why Andy Roberts and I came up with the 90 pot threshold was based on the 20 years of fishing experience that we had, where it seemed like any more than 90 and you couldn't get the season out of it. And we just felt like at the time, the way that it was for 20 years, that was an equitable way to manage the fishery, and we just decided that it should be codified. And I think that having 90 pots fished in the harbor is a good amount, and it would be nice to see that happen every year if it's at all possible. So, I'm planning on talking to Dan later about possibility that he can get my tags this year. And the town regulations allow for that. And maybe that will make him feel better about keeping the tag limit at 90. But I think that if you did have 3 fishermen in there fishing 50 pots each, it would be done really quick. And not only would it be really done quickly in that year, it would just get progressively worse, even with the off year. So I think 90 is a really nice sustainable number. But one thing that we'd never talked about was including Matticat into that equation. I don't think we ever talked about having, I don't think that Matticat is taken into account in that 90 pot limit. So I think that almost has to be decided separately. I fished Matticat once. And I basically ran a string from Eel Point to the mouth of the creek. I think it was a 25 pot string. And I think on my first set, I lost 5 of them because you're setting them right in the channel where everybody's going in and out. And it was really one of the only places that was deep enough. So I have no opinion on what the carrying capacity of Matticat ought to be. Or whether there should even be one. I just know that town 90 is a good number if all those 90 tags are being used. And I think that every effort should be made to try and see to it that those 90 tags are being used. That would be my opinion on that.
How do we create more flexibility with those 90 tags if, if you wanna keep your 30 tags, keep your license, but you're not active, it seems as though we need to have a stipulation. If you're not active, you need to pursue the other license holder that is active.
I mean, I think that should be encouraged, and I think that that's something that, if that is the goal, to make sure that those 90 pots are fished every year. And like I said, I mean, Dan and I talk, I don't know what's going on with Jimmy, and I've never really talked to him about it. But if I'm not planning on fishing, I have no problem negotiating with the other fishermen to see to it that those tags get used. And I mean, for instance, this year, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's always nice to have the option as a fisherman. You wanna be as diverse as you can be. If all of a sudden there's a closure and the oysters are all done, I'm gonna have to scramble myself together and go conking. But if I've made a deal with somebody about making sure that those tags get used, and forfeit my insurance policy, then I would certainly be willing to do that. But I think that that's a negotiation that ought to happen between the fishermen. Because I think the resource at 90 is at 90 pots for the future, not really knowing which way it's gonna go. At least for now. I mean, we can change that number if in a few years, I mean, I know I had 20 years of experience fishing the 90. And I think that the harbor's only been fished 2 or 3 seasons since Dan's permit became active. So I don't think there's still a lot of data on or a rationale for changing it from 90 to 150, unless those 90 pots aren't being fished one way or another. So I think we ought to just keep an eye on whether those 90 pots are being fished over the next couple of years and then pick it up later. Something's not working and that's not happening, then it needs to be revisited. But I think, given the example that Dan put right here in this email, if Jimmy's not gonna buy his permit, that means there'll be 45 tags split between Dan and I. And if I decide that I'm not gonna go one way or another, then Dan will be fishing 90 based on something that he and I can come up with. And if that's okay with Dan for a few years, then I think that we might have this thing settled between the active fishermen that are actually doing this.
Is this flexibility already provided for in the regulations?
Not like Dan lays it out in this email. This is exactly the way I think it should be.
Well, that's good to hear,
It's-
agreement between.
Yeah,
fishermen.
it's the way it should have been to begin with.
And Tara, is this something that's in regulations we've already reviewed, conking's covered in here, so. is this
It's in there, the
something we can
only,
implement?
the only thing I didn't see is like the even odd years, like it just says every other year, and so that probably needs clarification. And the other thing I just wanted to point out is like, when we do all of our surveys, every fall and now spring, we are doing knobbies and channeled whelk also, so we do have like 15 years of data for Nantucket Harbor. We haven't really done a deep dive into it, but it is something that we monitor for population and abundance, at 40 different sites. So, perhaps it's something that we can look at a little bit further too, and maybe compare landings from Nantucket Harbor for these years in conjunction with the survey. And just see if there's any correlation, when it comes to talking about the 90 pots and whether we're increasing or decreasing.
Dan mentioned that some of the oyster farmers, feel like the conch, having not been fished for some time, are kind of, causing havoc with their operation. Can you, and when you, or if you speak with the oyster farmers, can you maybe, poll them on that?
Definitely.
Have you been actively oyster farming?
Yeah, it's all
Are
I
you
do.
finding,
I mean, I don't because mine are all caged up, so the
Floating.
conch can't get at them. Well, it's on the bottom during the winter, but the conchs have no way of getting in the bag. So I don't have any conch mortality. I know that Emil broadcasts his oysters, so
Right.
there's nothing protecting those oysters.
Mm.
So maybe he's having a much bigger problem than I do, but I don't think anybody who's setting stuff down in containers would be having that problem.
Dan, do you have something more you can add on that?
Just, and Matt can relate to this, like with if the trap tags did go to the 150, like if it's not worth fishing traps in the harbor, there's places outside you can go, like basically how I've worked the harbor in the past is you work in there in the springtime when it gets real busy and the water gets warm, you get out of there because of the boat traffic, fishing single traps. This year I'm going to fish trawl gear. So I hopefully won't lose gear, because if you fish a single trap it's one trap, one buoy, somebody runs your buoy over, you lose your trap and whatever was in it. In regards to, like you were saying, Matt, out in Matticat, my plan is to come out right at Jackson's Point and just set a trawl,
Right.
right down the channel and right through Warrens, and, probably not have a buoy on the west end so nobody would follow it, but have a buoy on the east end of it so you could work your way, and you'd have to time it right. But anyways, in regards to the tags, like if it went to 150 and it wasn't worth fishing in the harbor, those traps are more valuable fished outside. If the two of us, if Matt and I both went the same year and there were 150 tags and we both had 75 tags, like I said, as soon as it wasn't worth fishing those, not necessarily 75 tags in those traps in the harbor, I would move them outside. Once the water gets warm, they go outside, and then you'd come back in the fall when the boat traffic and the water cools down. I don't know. I'm not really stuck on the 150, especially talking that it's easily transferable, talking amongst it, I don't know. Like I said, it's the other thing is, like, you get some cruddy weather that you're not going to go outside the harbor and necessarily get the stuff and beat out of you. You can pretty much always go up the harbor and haul them in the harbor. But then with the Matticat thing also, I've fished around Tuckernuck in the past out of a smaller boat and done real well. I know the current shellfish regulations don't really include Tuckernuck and Muskeget, but when I think of Matticat, I would think of Matticat Harbor, and then down off of Esther's and then up the east side of Tuckernuck, where a boat like the ones we all have, Jimmy and Matt and myself have, wouldn't be able to get in there. So it wouldn't really matter. But if you were to put a small, like your oyster skiff, Matt, if you were to put a hauler on that, oh my God, you know what you could do with that thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's geared more towards somebody in a smaller boat that maybe in my future I go back to a smaller boat, or, you know, who knows, but I don't know. It wouldn't really be worth going and fishing Mattocket Harbor and then running to Tuckernuck with, 30 traps, maybe 45. But if you could maybe have 75, you could make a day of it hauling inside. I mean, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. It's really a smaller boat fishery than what we're doing, but get the ball rolling towards it. But that's my 2 cents.
I have a question.
Mr. Brace.
So if we're talking 90 in the harbor, when we say the harbor, we're talking Nantucket Harbor, and Mattocket Harbor is questionable. And so Dan is saying go outside there and go east of Tuckernuck. And he just said that the regulations aren't for that, but the town in Nantucket is Muskeget, Tuckernuck, and Nantucket. And those waters, then how do you, maybe Dan's right with the 150, I don't know. I mean, or do you conch fishermen consider outside of net? When you say outside, you're talking outside the jetties, and you're talking outside of west of a line between Smith's Point and Eel Point, right?
Yeah.
So that would be the area that you would fish with your the rest of your 200 limit. But still you're under the state, but you're still under the town because it's town waters, because that's the town in the county of Nantucket.
Well, that's the thing that makes Mattocket tricky is the vineyard fishermen traditionally have fished right off of Eel Point. And so there was no real way to have a designation that would be exclusive to Nantucket fishermen. I mean, we've got the 3-mile limit and we've talked about that ad nauseum. And we've never been able to really pursue that as an objective. But what we have been able to do is protect our harbor within the delineation of the jetties and Mattocket, using that Smith's Point, Eel Point distinction. Anything in Mattocket beyond that becomes an enforcement issue with the vineyard fishermen. And of course, you could take that kind of thing on in different ways, but so far, we've had pretty good luck with having this regulation that we have with the town has been respected thus far, especially the town, because it's so well delineated. I mean, you come in those jetties, you're in the jetties and everybody can see you. Mattocket's a little bit tougher, but I agree. I mean, there's tons of bottom for a small boat all the way out to Muskeget, all that shoal waters.
That's kind of what I'm saying, Matt, is, like, we're limited in the depth of our boats where we can go. Like, we wouldn't bring our boats in close to Tuckernuck. So it's more of like, if you had, like, in one of us, at least 2 of us are always going to buy our town permits. So at the most, without any horse trading, the most one of us is going to fish is 75 traps, So like, one of the other reasons for breaking up town and Mattocket is even if you had 75 traps, it wouldn't be worth putting 50 in town and then steaming all the way around to Mattocket to haul 25 more traps. You know what I'm saying? Like, delineate the years, and then, you can't keep the vineyard boats out from Tuckernuck and Muskeget, but you kind of can by depth. That goes back to the smaller boat fishery where, like, if you want to try to get your boat into Tuckernuck, one of the boats that we have, all the luck to you. I wouldn't recommend it, but that would kind of be like a self-governing, not policed, but, I don't know. I would like to include Tuckernuck and Muskegon as the west end, the Mattocket end fishery, you know, whether we went to Tuckernuck and Muskegon, that's up to us. Like I said, that's geared to a smaller boat, but still you could fish along Esters and fish up inside Mattocket Harbor. And if it wasn't worth putting 75 traps in there, you're not going to put them in there. But if it was, great. I don't know. That's what I got.
Do any vineyard fishermen use small boats where they can get into the east side? of
Sometimes, I
Tuckernuck?
mean, it's always in flux.
Can
I
you
mean,
use two boats as a single fisherman?
No.
Can you can't have a big
Not,
boat?
I
and a
mean, you
small
used to
boat?
be able to, but not anymore.
And that's
No,
restricted.
like-
right?
Like the boat that Andy used to fish out of.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
or
then
like
was it-
that.
there were a couple of small ones too. Remember that like teal colored one?
Yeah, well, we'll run them out. I'm not worried about. And what kind of damage are they gonna do, Matt? You know what I'm saying? Like getting
No, I
in,
mean,
like,
like I said, Mattocket is, you know, Dan, what we should, this would be my proposal. Dan, you and I should get together and kick this around a little bit and then come back.
sure. I don't know when I'll be back to the island, but hopefully when the boat's done.
But I would recommend the adoption of the language that Dan has furnished in this email.
Can I second that? I like that first email. It makes total sense.
Makes total sense.
All right. We making a vote on this?
Can we, can we motion to vote on it?
Yeah, but it can't be,
Can I make a motion to
by Matt.
vote on this adoption of regulation for the
Dan's
license
recommendation.
tags or number of tags or how they're transferred or?
I'll second for discussion. Now, I'm wondering, we want to vote on this, but then Matt and Dan, we're gonna kick it around. So does that mean you're
I
gonna?
think
You're not-
Dan and I are gonna kick around the,
Yeah, I think that we can, the first email. You guys want to vote on that? The second email part about the trap tag number, Matt and I can talk about that. And, you know, we'll figure something out.
The longer one's the one I'm recommending that we
Right,
vote on.
yeah.
does that need to go up? Never mind.
Well, I mean, I guess it gives more of a nudge, so to speak, to Tara, and she can, or, you know, start writing this in, implement, or, you know, getting it into these regulation changes, and so she can be ahead of the game, at least with her paperwork.
I'll forward it to you right now, Tara.
It makes sense. You're not gonna go fishing. If you don't buy your permit, then the other person should be able to.
I'm fine with going forward with this vote. The vote is, you know, the motion has been made by Mr. Sherwin to approve, or to recommend the long version of recommendation for, that Dan Pronk has proposed. It's been seconded by Mr. Brace. Any more discussion? All in favor, Mr. Sherwin?
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
All right,
Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Bossy,
Aye.
Miss Andrews. Ginger, have you been following along? You might be muted. She still with us?
yes,
Hello, Ginger.
Hello? Hello there.
Hi.
Sorry, I was muted.
All right, you've been following along. We're voting on recommendation that Mr. Pronk is suggesting.
Okay, yes, I have been following.
All right, is that an aye?
That's an aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you.
That's faster than-
Anything else to discuss on conch harvesting?
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome, Dan. Proposed dinghy regulations at the town pier. This is a Sheila item. So we'll push forward on that till Sheila's with us. Everybody agree? Any public comment or questions on any items on the agenda from tonight's meeting? Any items, anybody would like to add for, next meeting agenda? What do we got going on there? You might mute again, Ginger.
You doing
What's
all right
that?
there? What's going on in the background there, whatever it is?
Oh,
talking-
sorry.
Towing your cat, maybe?
No, it was windshield wipers. I got into the car.
All right. Training,
No worries.
thank you, anything somebody wants to add to our next agenda, please get in touch with Peter or myself. Before the Thursday before our next meeting. Our next meeting is April 16th, 2 weeks from today. If we have nothing else to discuss tonight, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Anderson, seconded by Mr. Sherwin to adjourn tonight's meeting. All in favor, Mr. Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Sherwin.
Aye.
Mr. Brace,
All right.
Mr. Bossy,
Hi.
Andrews,
Aye.
chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Good night.